CNN broke the news last night that Donald Trump's entire impeachment defense team has stepped down, citing a difference in strategy. Butch Bowers and Deborah Barbier, they are the lead impeachment lawyers. They have stepped down, as well as 3 other impeachment lawyers that Bowers brought on. Now, Bowers was clear with Trump, a source tells us. He wanted to argue about the legality of trying to convict a former president. But Trump had a different idea for what his defense needed to be. He wanted them to argue that there was massive election fraud and that the election was stolen from him. Now, Trump has been clear he wanted that to happen. Trump's former campaign manager, Jason Miller, told CNN that the team is trying to figure out what is going to happen leading into next week, and we have 2 days until some legal briefs have to be filed 1 week before the Senate impeachment trial is set to begin. Trump has no strategy, Trump has no team, and he has a little more than a week to figure that out before his impeachment trial begins. Guys?
All right, Daniela Diaz, wrap for us. Thank you so much.
All right, let's bring in now CNN legal analyst Ellie Honig, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, and Jeff Mason, White House correspondent for Reuters. Gentlemen, good morning to you. Ellie, let me start with you. We heard a little bit from Daniela there. For a legal team to quit now and en masse, for all of them to go, what do you glean from that?
Well, first of all, Victor, what a mess.
Yeah.
And here we are, we're a week and change out from trial, and the former president, has nobody representing him. So lawyers generally have a very broad obligation to represent their clients, criminal defendant, impeachment defendant, whatever it may be. But when you see something like this, what it tells you is there was a difference in terms of not just necessarily strategy, but if a defense lawyer believes he is being made to make an argument that is either a lie or dangerous or unethical, that's where you see resignations like this. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Look, if President Trump said to these lawyers, and by all appearances, they're legitimate lawyers, several of them are DOJ alums, one of them's an ethics expert. If President Trump said, I want you to go out there and argue this election was stolen, they have every right, and they did the right thing to say, no, we're out.
Ellie, let me stay with you for this, because we all knew, they knew, everybody knew that the president told this lie that the election had been stolen from him. He did that from the night of the return started to come in, and they joined the team anyway. What does that tell you about how central that lie he wanted to be part of the case that they were making? It couldn't be just a part of it, because they knew that that would be something he wanted it to happen, that he wanted that maybe to be the central element.
Yeah, Victor, he's sticking with it. Look, it could be, if I was a lawyer in that situation, if the president came to me, former president, and said, I'd like you to represent me, I would probably say something like, I'm not doing that big lie thing. Look, I'll argue constitutionality all day long. Maybe I'll argue that your speech that you gave there didn't quite step over the line of the First Amendment. I don't agree with those arguments, but I think they're fair play. But if he said to me, no, you're going to get up there and you're going to rant and rave about this election was stolen, rigged, I would say, no, I'm out. I would do exactly what these lawyers did. And by the way, the Senate does not have to allow this defense. Real judges in real trials all the time say to defense lawyers, you cannot argue that. That's not a proper defense. The Senate controls how this impeachment trial goes. They need to think hard about whether they want to even countenance that sort of a lie as a defense.
Jeff, to you now. There has been this mutually beneficial delay from when the article was walked over to the Senate, excuse me, to the start of the trial. You got the 2 weeks to give the president time to build the defense. Is there any appetite for that to be elongated, for there to be another week for the president to put his team together?
Not that I've seen, no, and that was a compromise in the first place, the fact that that delay was put into place at all. And I think we can conclude from this reporting that it seems likely that the Democrats are making better use of that time to form their arguments and to find evidence that they can present at the Senate trial than former President Trump and his team have done. It's I think worth underscoring a couple times how unusual this is at this point. I mean, he's just a little over a week away from actually having to be represented in that trial without a legal team. Will there be a push, perhaps, from the Republican side to delay it again? It's hard for me to say that, but no, Victor, I haven't seen any appetite for that, and it's again that delay was created in the first place by a compromise, it seems unlikely that they would compromise again.
It's unusual because there's a deadline of the start of the trial, but this is really what we've watched for the last several months. The same thing happened with the firms that represented the president during the election fight. They came in and said that we will defend the president and the campaign, and when they realized the lie that he wanted them to tell, they all backed away. The difference between, from at least the way I understand it, this impeachment and the first one was that the Ukraine call, as clear as it was to some, could be interpreted several different ways. Who won the election is not something that's up for debate. I say all that to get to this question, Jeff. Does this make it any more likely that the argument the president's making, or wants to be made, that there will be Republicans who will vote to convict?
An excellent question, and I just don't have the answer. I think one way of looking at that is the result of the vote with regard to constitutionality, with only 5 Republicans in the Senate going with Democrats on that. That seems to be a flag that the president will not be at risk of losing a total of 17 Republicans in that vote as to whether to convict or to acquit. But it's you also had people like Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell saying he would wait and listen to the evidence. So that's a little bit of a mixed message. We're just going to have to wait and see how that reaction plays out.
Let's put up some of the important dates that are coming up, put them up on the screen so people understand that, a legal team walking out at the end of January when you've got February 2nd, Tuesday, for the president's team to answer the impeachment article. Next Monday, they've got to present their pretrial brief, and then the trial starts next Tuesday, February 9th. Ellie, I'm going to raise the slim possibility that I raised before the impeachment vote in the House. I want you to tell me I'm crazy. Is there any scenario under which the president now, with the calendar that's left, says, I'm not going to launch a defense? I'm going to call it a witch hunt. I'm going to call it a hoax. I'm going to call it a show trial. He knows from the votes from the Rand Paul suggestion that it was not constitutional to have debate about that, at least, that there are at least 45 Republicans who voted for that. Save the money.
Victor Blackwell, you are not crazy. Congratulations.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That absolutely could happen. If this was a criminal trial, the judge would appoint a lawyer. You go to a public defender or somebody who's in the rotation. You can't really try a defendant without any defense lawyer there. Sometimes defendants even choose to represent themselves in criminal cases. But this is impeachment. This is a different creature altogether. And President Trump could choose to do just what you laid out, Victor. It's possible. He could just choose to say, look, I have a good sense of where those 45 Republican senators stand. They haven't necessarily committed to voting to acquit, but I have a good sense of where they stand. I'm going to essentially sit this one out, protest it, whatever, let the Republicans in the chamber make the argument for me. That could happen, Victor.